The lecture hall hummed with anticipation. Rows of alien students sat perfectly still, their various appendages and sensory organs focused on Professor Kim Jae-won, who stood before an immense holographic display. The room itself was a marvel of interstellar engineering, transparent walls that shifted colors based on the emotional resonance of its occupants, currently a deep blue of concentrated curiosity. Hyun, a young researcher from the Azure Nebula, adjusted his translation device. His species looked nothing like humans, translucent tentacles that moved independently, eyes that changed color with thought, but today he was utterly captivated by the mysterious subject before him. Next to him, Yoon from the prismatic cluster leaned forward, her crystalline body catching and refracting the soft ambient light. Professor Jae-won cleared his throat. His fingers danced across a holographic control panel, and suddenly the room transformed. What had been a simple lecture space now became an immersive historical projection. Today, he began, his voice calm and measured, we will explore the most classified information in galactic diplomatic history, humanity. The word hung in the air, heavy with unspoken implications. The first image appeared, a grainy recording of what seemed like an ordinary human city. But something was different. Buildings looked both fragile and resilient, streets filled with beings that moved with an unpredictable energy. The alien students watched, confused. Humans are not like other species, Jae-won continued. They do not follow conventional survival protocols. Where most civilizations would negotiate, retreat, or surrender, humans adapt. A series of rapid images flashed, human soldiers improvising weapons, civilians transforming everyday objects into tools of survival, communities coming together under impossible circumstances. Each image was a testament to something fundamentally different about these creatures. Hyun's tentacles twitched with growing fascination. He had studied hundreds of species, but humans seemed to defy every scientific classification he understood. They were not the strongest, not the most technologically advanced, yet something about them suggested a potential that terrified galactic leadership. The holographic display zoomed into a specific historical moment. A small human colony, seemingly defenseless, facing an overwhelming invasion force. Standard protocols would suggest immediate surrender, but these humans did something unexpected. They fought, not just with weapons but with creativity, with psychological strategies that made no logical sense. They used humor as a weapon. They turned limitations into strengths. They transformed fear into an unexplainable force of resistance. Yoon's crystalline form vibrated slightly, a sign of deep intellectual excitement among her species. She had never seen anything like this before. The Galactic Confederation, Professor Jae-won explained, did not ban humans from conflicts because they were violent. They banned humans because humans represent an unpredictable variable in any strategic equation. More images followed. Humans surviving in environments that should have killed them. Humans creating solutions where no solution seemed possible. Humans turning what looked like certain defeat into unexpected victory. The lecture hall's walls now pulsed with a complex mix of colors, blues of curiosity, hints of red representing mild fear, streaks of green indicating analytical processing. The alien students were no longer just listening. They were experiencing a profound intellectual revelation. Hyun raised a tentacle, a gesture of query in his culture. Professor, he asked, why are humans so different? Jae-won smiled. It was a smile that contained multiple layers of meaning, respect, caution, and a hint of something the alien students couldn't quite interpret. Because, he said simply, humans do not accept the word impossible. The holographic display flickered, showing one final image. A group of humans from different backgrounds, different ages, standing together, not because they were ordered to, not because it was strategically sound, but because they chose to. As the first part of the lecture concluded, the alien students understood something fundamental had just changed in their understanding of the universe. Humanity was not just another species. They were something else entirely. A wild card, an anomaly, a force of nature. and the galaxy was right to be cautious. The holographic records flickered to life, casting a pale blue light across the lecture hall. Professor Kim Jae-won's fingers traced delicate patterns on the control panel, bringing forth a series of battle recordings that made the alien students collectively hold their breath. The first image showed a human spacecraft. Nothing special, by galactic standards. It was old, patched together, looking more like a collection of spare parts than a fighting machine. Beside it, a massive alien warship gleamed with advanced technology, its weaponry capable of turning entire planets to dust. "Watch closely," Jae-won said softly. The battle that unfolded defied every known military strategy. The human ship moved differently, not with precision, but with something more dangerous: unpredictability. Where standard navigation systems would predict a course, this ship zigzagged, twisted, and turned in patterns that seemed almost random. Hyun leaned closer, his translucent tentacles curling with intense concentration. The alien warship fired multiple energy weapons, each shot powerful enough to vaporize a small moon. But the human ship, it danced. There was no other word for it. It danced between the massive energy blasts, using gravitational pulls, asteroid, fields, and what seemed like pure luck to avoid destruction. Then came the counterattack. The human ship was smaller. Its weapons looked almost primitive, but each shot found its mark with impossible precision. The alien students watched in stunned silence as the massive warship, a pinnacle of technological advancement, began to break apart. "How?" Yoon whispered, her crystalline body trembling with disbelief. The next recording showed something even more impossible. A human ground team, surrounded by an overwhelming alien force. Standard military analysis would suggest total annihilation. But these humans did something unexpected. They used their environment as a weapon. Rocks became shields. Broken equipment transformed into improvised explosives. Communication devices became tools of psychological warfare. The humans communicated in ways that confused and disrupted the alien attackers, using humor, taunts, unexpected sounds that broke traditional combat protocols. Jae-won's voice was calm, almost clinical. Humans do not fight like other species. They do not see limitations, they see opportunities. Another recording, this time a human colony facing complete destruction. Resources were minimal. Technology was outdated. The alien invasion force looked unstoppable. But the humans did not panic. They organized. They planned. They turned every single resource into a potential weapon. Agricultural equipment became defensive mechanisms. Communication networks transformed into complex strategic planning systems. Even children became part of the resistance, creating distractions, carrying messages, supporting the community's survival. The alien invasion force, designed for straightforward military conquest, found itself entangled in a resistance that made no logical sense. The humans were not just fighting, they were adapting, changing, transforming the very nature of conflict. Hyun's research notes flew across his personal device. Each recording challenged everything he knew about military strategy, about survival, about the nature of intelligent species. The most dangerous weapon, Professor Jae-won said, is not technology. It is adaptability. The final recording was the most chilling. A small human settlement facing what should have been certain destruction. The alien attack force was precise, calculated, technologically superior. But the humans responded with something unexpected: unity. They did not fight as individuals. They fought as a collective. Every person had a role. Every action was synchronized. They turned their weakness into strength, their limited resources into an unpredictable force of resistance. The alien students watched in stunned silence as the impossible happened. The human settlement not only survived, but caused significant damage to the attacking force. Yoon's crystalline form pulsed with a complex mix of emotions: fear, respect, pure scientific fascination. Hyun's tentacles moved in complex patterns, trying to process what he was witnessing. Humans, Jae-won concluded, are not bound by the rules other species follow. They create their own rules. They rewrite the very understanding of conflict of survival. As the holographic records faded, the lecture hall remained silent. The alien students understood something profound had just been revealed. Humanity was not just another species in the vast galactic ecosystem. They were something else entirely, a force of nature, an unpredictable variable that could change everything. The lecture hall dimmed, and a new series of projections began to dance across the holographic screen. Professor Kim Jae-won's voice carried a subtle tension, as if the information he was about to share was both fascinating and dangerous. Psychological warfare, he started, is where humans truly become remarkable. The first image showed a small, human colony facing an alien invasion. But this was no ordinary confrontation. The humans were outnumbered, outgunned, and technologically inferior. By all standard calculations, they should have surrendered immediately. Instead, they laughed. Hyun watched in confusion. Laughter? In the face of certain destruction? His tentacles twisted, processing this unexpected response. The alien invasion, force advanced and calculated, seemed momentarily stunned by the human reaction. The projection zoomed in. Humans were using humor as a weapon. They created ridiculous signs, made absurd jokes over communication channels, and responded to threats with sarcasm that completely broke the psychological framework of the attacking force. The alien soldiers, trained in precise military protocols, found themselves confused, their strategic thinking disrupted by something they couldn't comprehend. One human stood at the colony's central communication hub. She was small, probably, what humans would call middle-aged. Her communication strategy was unlike anything the alien students had ever seen. She mixed serious tactical information with jokes, personal stories, and random cultural references that made no logical sense. Watch their communication patterns, Jae-won explained. Humans use emotion as a tactical tool. The alien invasion force began to make mistakes. Their precise calculations faltered. They became uncertain, hesitant. The human colony, which should have been helpless, started gaining psychological ground. Yoon's crystalline form vibrated with intense curiosity. Her species communicated through mathematical precision. Emotion was a controlled, predictable process. But these humans? They used emotion like a weapon, like a living, breathing strategy that could change in milliseconds. Another projection showed human prisoners of war. In every other known galactic civilization, captured soldiers would be defeated, broken. But these humans continued to resist, not through physical strength, but through psychological resilience. They sang songs, they told stories, they shared jokes. They created complex internal communication systems using nothing more than body language and subtle signals. The alien guards found themselves increasingly frustrated, unable to break the human spirit. Humans transform psychological pressure into strength, Jae-won said. Where other species see defeat, they see a challenge. The next recording was even more extraordinary. A human medical team trapped behind enemy lines. They should have been terrified. Instead, they organized themselves with an almost playful determination. They used limited resources in ways that defied traditional thinking. A broken communication device became a complex signaling system. Medical supplies were redistributed, using an internal network of trust and creativity. When food was scarce, they created elaborate cooking competitions that kept morale high. Hyun's research notes flew across his personal device. Each new projection challenged everything he understood about survival, about conflict, about the very nature of intelligent species. The alien students watched as humans turned limitation into opportunity. They didn't just survive, they transformed their environment. They created hope where hope seemed impossible. They used imagination as a survival tool. Professor Jae-won's final demonstration was the most powerful. A recording of human children in a refugee camp. These were beings who had lost everything: their homes, their communities, their sense of normal life. By all standard psychological models, they should have been traumatized, broken. Instead, they played. They created games. They supported each other. They found joy in the smallest moments. This, J1 said quietly, is why humans are dangerous. Not because of their technology, not because of their physical strength, but because they can find hope in the darkest moments. The lecture hall was silent. The alien students understood. Something profound had been revealed. Humanity was not just a species. They were a complex, unpredictable force of psychological resilience. They didn't just survive. They transformed survival into an art form, and the galaxy was right to be cautious. The great diplomatic chamber of the Galactic Confederation stretched. Before them, a massive circular room where hundreds of alien species had gathered decades ago. The holographic reconstruction showed a tense moment in galactic history. Professor Kim Jae-won's voice carried a quiet intensity. This is where everything changed. The first image revealed representatives from 247 different alien civilizations. Some were energy beings, others crystalline structures, some resembling complex biological machines. At the center of the massive chamber stood a single holographic representation of human diplomatic records. Nobody wanted to speak first. The prismatic delegate, a being of pure light and mathematical precision, initiated the conversation. Humans represent an uncontrollable variable in galactic stability, she stated. Her voice resonated with clinical detachment. Recordings showed multiple encounters, humans transforming every potential conflict into something unexpected. Where other species would negotiate, humans would adapt. Where others would surrender, humans would resist. Their capacity for survival defied every known diplomatic protocol. Hyun watched closely. His tentacles moved with intense concentration, analyzing every subtle detail of the historical reconstruction. Beside him, Yoon's crystalline form pulsed with intellectual excitement. The diplomatic records revealed something extraordinary. The various galactic civilizations were not afraid of human military might. They were terrified of human potential. 1. Recording showed a human negotiation team. They were small in number, technologically limited. But they approached the diplomatic table with something more powerful than weapons: creativity, unpredictability, and an absolute refusal to accept impossible limitations. We propose, one human representative said, a different approach. The alien delegates exchanged nervous glances. Different was not something the Galactic Confederation appreciated. Stability, predictability, control. These were the fundamental principles of interstellar diplomacy. Humans represented none of those things. The Quantum Collective, a civilization of pure computational intelligence, presented their analysis. Humans could transform any situation. They could turn limitation into opportunity. They could unite under pressure in ways that defied mathematical prediction. Mathematical models cannot contain human potential, the quantum representative stated. More recordings emerged. Humans solving complex problems through methods that made no logical sense. A human engineering team repairing a critically damaged space station using nothing more than basic tools and collective creativity. A human medical team developing treatment protocols that challenged established scientific understanding. The diplomatic chamber became a pressure cooker of tension. Some alien representatives wanted war. Others wanted complete isolation. A few suggested more extreme measures: complete genetic restriction, technological quarantine, total removal from galactic interactions. But one fundamental truth emerged: humans could not be controlled. They do not follow rules. The Azure Nebula, representative said. They rewrite rules. The final decision came after 72 continuous hours of debate. The galactic prohibition was not about preventing human violence. It was about preventing human potential from fundamentally altering the established galactic order. Restrictions would be placed. Humans would be limited. Their technological development would be monitored. Their space exploration would be controlled. But everyone in that chamber knew the truth. These restrictions were more about the aliens' fear than any real containment. Professor, J1's voice became soft. Humanity was not banned from conflict. They were separated to protect the existing galactic structure. The alien students listened in stunned silence. Hyun's research notes flew across his personal device. Each moment challenged everything he understood about diplomatic processes, about interspecies interactions, about the very nature of potential. The holographic reconstruction faded. The diplomatic chamber dissolved. What remained was a profound understanding. Humans were not just another species in the vast galactic ecosystem. They were a force of nature, an unpredictable variable that could change everything. And the galaxy was right to be cautious. The lecture hall remained silent, filled with the weight of this extraordinary revelation. The lecture hall fell silent as Professor Kim Jae-won prepared his final presentation. His hands moved carefully across the holographic controls, each gesture holding a sense of profound anticipation. The final truth about humanity, he began, is not about their weapons. It is about their spirit. The first projection showed something unexpected, not a battlefield, not a diplomatic conference, just ordinary humans in extraordinary circumstances, a small community facing a natural disaster. Where other species would scatter, these humans united. They shared resources. They protected the weak. They worked together with a synchronicity that defied logical explanation. Hyun leaned forward, his translucent tentacles vibrating with intense curiosity. Yoon's crystalline form pulsed with a complex mix of emotions, fear, respect, pure scientific fascination. The images continued. Humans solving problems that should have been impossible. A group rebuilding a destroyed village with nothing more than basic tools and collective determination. Scientists developing medical solutions in makeshift laboratories. Children creating complex communication networks during total communication breakdown. Humans do not see limitations, Jae-won explained. They see challenges. Another projection revealed something even more profound. Human historical records showed a species that consistently pushed beyond its own boundaries. They had started on a single planet, small, fragile, surrounded by environmental challenges. Yet they had dreamed of reaching stars when their technology was barely capable of basic transportation. The alien students watched recordings of human exploration, not just physical exploration, but intellectual. They challenged their own understanding constantly. They asked questions. They refused to accept impossible as a final answer. One recording showed a human research team. They had limited resources, minimal funding. By all standard scientific protocols, their project should have failed. Instead, they discovered something revolutionary, a new understanding of energy transfer that could potentially transform interstellar travel. Their greatest weapon, Professor Jae-won said quietly, is imagination. The next series of projections demonstrated humanity's most dangerous quality, their ability to adapt and transform. Humans took technological failures and turned them into opportunities. They learned from mistakes faster than any known species. Where others would become discouraged, humans became more determined. A complex recording showed human medical researchers developing treatment protocols during a global health crisis. They shared information. They collaborated across traditional boundaries. They transformed personal limitations into collective strength. Hyun's research notes moved faster than ever before. Each moment challenged everything he understood about species development, about survival, about potential. The final projection was the most powerful. It showed humans not as conquerors, not as warriors, but as beings capable of profound compassion, helping other species, protecting vulnerable communities, sharing resources without expecting immediate return. Humans are not defined by their ability to destroy, Jae-won said. They are defined by their ability to create, to heal, to understand. The alien students understood something fundamental had been revealed. Humanity was not just another species in the vast galactic ecosystem. They were something else entirely, a species that refused to be limited by current understanding. A civilization that transformed challenges into opportunities. A group of beings who saw beyond immediate survival into collective potential. The holographic displays faded. The lecture hall remained charged with an electric sense of revelation. Hyun raised a tentacle, a gesture of query in his culture. "Professor?" he asked. "Why are humans so different?" Jaewon's smile contained multiple layers of meaning, respect, caution, and something the alien students couldn't quite interpret. "Because," he said simply, "humans believe in possibilities others cannot see." The alien students looked at each other. They had entered the lecture hall with one understanding of humanity. They would leave with something completely different. Humanity was not just a species to be studied. They were a force of nature, an unpredictable, transformative power that could change everything.